Hi, I'm Daryl from Maker's Lab. Today we're going to be unboxing and assembling a Creality CR-10 Mini. This CR-10 Mini was purchased by me from banggood.com, and today we're going to be going over unboxing, assembly, setup, and maybe a test print. So let's get started. You'll find out upon opening the box that this printer is fairly assembled. It's in two main parts. So let's get rid of this stuff over here. This will be your bottom section of the printer. And you will have a box of parts. Put that to the side for now. We'll have the control box unit. This is the main power and everything for the printer. Let's put that to the side for the moment as well. And the last main component to take out of here, so I can get this out without all the styrofoam for you, is the gantry assembly. There we are. This component here. So that's all the pieces we need out of the box. Double check. Yep. Okay. Get rid of that. Alright, here we are. Get that down. Let's pull out this component here. Those are our main components we have. Alright, power box. And all our parts. In the box of parts, you will have two things you need, things you might not want. You'll have some masking tape. Some people use it to add to the bed for adhesion. You'll have a roll of white filament, PLA, 1.75 millimeter. You'll have an extra PTFE tubing. I shouldn't need that unless there's some issues. A USB to micro USB dongle to read the micro SD card. Sorry. You'll have a end stop. This is your Z end stop. It'll be on the left-hand side of the printer. You will have two power cords, one for Europe, one for the United States. You'll have your instruction manual, a USB cable for connecting your computer to the printer or Raspberry Pi or other things. A scraper tool, getting the prints off the bed. None of that we'll need for assembly. Part of the spool holder, and this other part of the spool holder. Won't need those for right now today. Right now what we're doing, this is the main piece we're going to need. This is all the bolts and nuts and everything that we will need, and a spare nozzle maybe? Let's see, yeah, spare nozzle, okay. I didn't have one of those in the first one of these I unboxed. Alright, I took the opportunity to go off camera for a second, remove the plastic wrap from the bed, remove the zip ties from the gantry assembly, pull the tools out of the bags, as well as the Z-stop and nuts and bolts and things of that nature. So, first thing to be done, I can put the power box off to the side, is to bolt the gantry to the frame using these 4 bolts here. So let's get that done here. Let's bring this around. And you can tell the back of the unit with the Y stepper motor in the back. That's the back of the unit. That should be towards the back, and then if you look at on the gantry here, you'll want your extruder towards the front, towards you. And just line up these holes here as such, and put the bolts in. Now this can be a little tricky to do with one person. Best bet is to try to tilt it to one side, get a bolt through the bottom, and line it up. Like I said, it can be a little tricky. Once you get one in, or one started, it gets a lot easier. So that one started, I'll go ahead and get these other 3 done, and be right back. Alright, so I'm back. I have finger tightened all 4 of those bolts. I'm going to get them tightened up with the wrench here. I'm going to use the biggest one that came with the set. And again, just tilt it to the side. The easiest way to get under there and get those all snug. You don't need to do them overly tight, but they should be pretty firm. I mean, this are going to hold everything together against wobble for the gantry for the Z-axis, so should be pretty tight. Once we're done getting all these tightened up, we can do some other checks on the printer. I want to check some of the rollers and the belt tension, some of these things real quick, just before we get it all fully assembled. It's easier while it's already here out in the box. And that's 2 of them down here. Another thing to note with the CR-10 Mini, a lot of people in the older reviews and upgrades and things you'll see online, specifically with this printer, mention printing a heated bed, what's it called here, sorry, your wire strain relief bracket. That's not needed, at least from the ones I've done. This is my second one I'm putting together here. They've both included it now, so that's a new change Creality seems to have made. Another thing also, if you look underneath the printer when we're down there messing with the screws, sorry this one's all in, you'll see that there is already the bed knobs. So the larger knobs a lot of people tell you to put on and be one of the first upgrades to do, you'll notice they're already done. So Creality has made some changes in some of the older videos and walkthroughs out there for this. Alright, those are four all snug, so now we're going to check the wheels. Cut. Because this is not actually lining up for me. Way to turn this here. Okay, so now we've got the gantry bolted down with those 4 bolts, and we're ready to check on a couple of the other items here. So slide up the Z-axis if it's too close to the bed, so you can move the bed freely. Just want to slide it around a couple times, see if it feels okay, make sure there's nothing grabbing or any sticking points. One thing to do at this point is to flip the unit over. Let's see if I can't get a better angle for you here. And on the bottom there is 6 rollers. Hopefully this is getting in my top shot here. Just make sure each are spinning okay. They should be, when you spin them by hand, they should be tight enough where they grab the bed and move the bed, kind of like you're seeing here. This front one's a little loose. That one's pretty good. That one's a little loose. So these two on mine were a little loose. I like to tighten them up just to make sure they're grabbing the bed when they move. Now it's moving the bed. That one's moving the bed. Okay, all 4 are grabbing the bed and getting moved. So those are all ready here, so we're all done under here. Don't want to mess with the bed leveling knobs yet, and we'll help from here. And they may be already closer to level before we touch them. So now that that's done, the next step is going to be to install the Z-limit switch. So let's go ahead and do that. Alright, so let's get to the Z-limit switch. One thing to note here with the CR-10 Mini, I see a lot of people online in the reviews that complain about this and think they have missing parts. The CR-10 Mini only comes with one, it's a T-shaped bracket with a limit switch on it, one T-bracket to go on the left-hand side underneath the extruder side and underneath the access motor for the gantry. It does not come with a T-bracket for the right side, so if you do not have one, you're not missing one, it's not there. Just keep that in mind. I see a lot of people that say they're missing it. For these, you'll see if you look on the back here closely, let's see if I can't get a little closer, they are what's called T-nuts, so they go into the aluminum extrusion one direction, standing upright, and as you tighten them, they will turn sideways and lock in. So you just find the right Allen wrench size here. Mine are a little tight to begin with. They're not going to slide in there because they're all the way pressed against it. I'm going to just loosen up here a tiny bit. So there's some play. Should be good. Okay. And then that's going to go here on the left hand side, like I said, under this. Just got to get these all turned. Sorry, actually some go horizontal and some go vertical. I said they all go vertical earlier, that was incorrect. Just jiggle them all till they drop in. Now they're all in there. And then you're going to get those all tightened up. And as you spin them, they should spin into place where they lock behind the aluminum extrusion. And it's only just the 4 of them here to get done. Sorry if you can't see too much from that angle here. The ones I'm talking about are just right here on this side. So let's see if this is a little bit better. Get these all 4 tightened up here. This is your Z limit stop. I may have to go back and tweak it later depending on the bed leveling and stuff, but for now just get it on there. That's it. So now that we're done with that, we can wire the control box up. So here's our control box. This is what we're going to wire up. Here's all our wires that we need to connect. One thing it does mention to do before you do that, which again doesn't really matter in order, is to install the spool holder bracket. So it's going to come right here on the control box. It's going to mount with 2 of the thumb screws. Let me turn this way, it's probably easier to see. It's going to mount with 2 of the thumb screws on here. This is what will hold your spool of filament, at least to start, unless you want to print a different solution for long term, which you can do. Which you can do if you choose to. So I'm going to just go ahead and install that here for you guys, and I'll have future videos showing some other systems you can use to mount your filament if you choose to. So get those 2 bolts on. This is the little spool holder you drop in here, and then where did I put the last little piece you need? Sorry, there's one little black nut that goes on the back of the spool holder, or spool, little rod, and tightens on, and that's it, done. So there's your spool holder, your spool with filament. So we'll slide onto here and roll on this to feed into the printer. Alright, let's go ahead and get the wiring done. Alright, so now we are ready to wire up our control unit and all the wires to the printer. They're all really well labeled. If you look really closely on the little yellow tabs here, they're going to have an X, Y, Z, or E on them. Those are the 3 different stepper motors and the extruder. So let's get that started here. One thing to note on my printer, you'll see that my PTFE tubing on the other end was not connected to the extruder. I didn't have that problem in the first one, so we're going to want to get that connected before we start printing. You just want to bring out the collar here on the PTFE coupler, pull it outwards, and then you can insert the tube and get that all the way snug in there. There also is some clips, little blue clips, see if you can see those. Come in the spare parts bin that you can get installed on here to make sure the coupler doesn't back in and cause the PTFE tubing to get loose, which can happen. So that's done. That was just one little piece here we had to connect. All set. Now for the wiring, here we go. So the 2 wires that come off of your printer, these are the aviation plugs they call them. These are for your heated bed and your nozzle. Those ones just line up and lock in, and I have a twist nut on the back of the power box. Let me get those set up here. The power unit does go on the left-hand side of the printer. Your filament roll here will be used to connect, run the filament in through the extruder, so it does go from this perspective. Here we are. So I'm going to get the heated bed plugged in first. That one goes in the lower of the 2. Just make sure the notch on the cable is facing up. Plugs in and twist on, done. And then for the nozzle, same thing. Make sure the notch is face up. It's going to go in the upper of the 2 connectors. All set. I personally like to start with the 3 connector plug. This is for the X stepper motor, X stepper motor. This is for the X stepper motor, the X limit switch, and the extruder. So the extruder one's easiest to put in first. Put the little prongs face up, or little little rivets. Little ribs face up, goes right here in the extruder stepper motor. X stepper motor is going to be right underneath. Sorry, you can't get a good angle on this one, so let's give it a twist. That's going to be underneath here. The X stepper motor, just right there. And then the X limit switch, which is the 3-pin version, or 3-pin one here, is going to go inside this little QR box. And a little bit tricky to get plugged in. Just due to the angle. Luckily they don't take much force to get in, so you can usually hold them by the cord a little ways back, line them up, and then stick a finger in there. Alright, clicked in, so that's done. This is for the Z axis, so this is going to be for the Z motor and the Z limit switch. Those are both going to be underneath what we were just working on. They kind of go in a Y split here, so the 4-pin one is for the stepper motor. That is going to be right here in the back. That's the one with the long lead screw coming out of it. That's your Z lead screw for the height. Alright. That's in. And then the other one from that is going to be a 3-pin one. This one can be a little tricky to get in. This is going to be actually under where we put the limit switch on. So when we screw it on that T-bracket, it goes in there and it goes from underneath. So it's a little annoying sometimes, but just give it a little bit of a fold and try to press it under there. I know you can't see this from your angle here, sorry about that. Aha, got it, okay. Lastly is going to be the Y motor. Those are going to be in the very back of the printer here. Let me just scoot this forward so you can see. And again, we have a 4-pin for the stepper motor, for the NEMA motor, and a 3-pin for the limit switch. So let's go ahead and slide the bed forward here, give it easier access. I like to actually put these under the printer and wrap up. Keeps it out of the way of the bed a little bit more, in my opinion. So get those two connected here. There's the stepper motor and limit switch. Which is going to be a little tricky for me today. Okay, that is done. Just need to take your time a little bit there sometimes, but now the bed does move freely. Actually, it's getting caught on this wire here. There is obviously included here a bunch of, this is a little off angle, this will be closer over here, gives a little more room to breathe. And there's some zip ties included in the set to clean up the wiring. So make sure you note that these 3 cables here, the ones that are reconnected first, do need to move up and down the gantry, so you need to leave room for them to go up and down. Don't want to zip tie them to the other one down here or get them in any way where they're going to get caught when it moves up and down. So they can be zip tied together. It's a good idea to do so, but just don't zip tie them to anything else. That should be it. I'm going to go ahead and get this plugged in. I'll come back in just a moment and we'll make sure everything's working. One other thing to note before you plug in the unit after getting all the wiring done is the voltage. By default, every one of these I've used has been shipped in the configuration of 230 volts. So before plugging it in, if you're in the US like I am, make sure you switch that over to 115, and otherwise it will not operate. Alright, so here we are, powered up for the first time. Creality CR-10 Mini on the screen. Everything's connected. We're just going to go ahead and go through the menus here and test to make sure everything's working. So we go under here to Control, and then we can go to Auto Home. We can test that. It's going to move ahead and Auto Home both the axis here for the Y and the X. And then it will do Auto Home Z. It's going to check and make sure it's able to hit all the sensor switches and limit switches and confirm where home is. There we are. You can hear the fan spinning. All the axes is moved correctly. We can go back in again here under Control and then under Motion. And we can actually set, sorry, not that. We can go back in here under Prepare and down to Move Axis. And we can move them 10 millimeters. So we're going to go ahead and move the x-axis 10 millimeters here just to check. That was 40. Okay, I did hit the binder clip there, so keep that in mind. Good. Let's go on left and right like we wanted to. We can move the y-axis 10 millimeters. It's moving in 40 millimeter sections here, so it's all like 160, 200. And it did that little grind because it tried to go to 230. It has a 220 limit on its y-axis. By default, I don't think the firmware has a z-axis automatic move that you can do here. That will be something you'll get access to once you update the firmware, which I do recommend. You can do it under the 1 millimeter section here. So this is the move axis, z-axis for 1 millimeter. Let's go ahead and do that. Give it 20 or so to move. You can check and make sure that's working. Sounds good. So in one of the next videos I will show you how to update the firmware to the TH3D latest firmware or Marlin 1.19 if you choose. That will be coming up future, so take a look for that. Otherwise, that was the conclusion here. Are all unboxed and set up. Everything's working. So go ahead and like and subscribe to the video if you would, if you're interested in seeing more content regarding this printer and other 3D printing operations and tips and tricks and those kinds of things. I will be back and see you later.